What's up, Fish Sauce family? It's Wilson
and Elton, and we're back with a fresh episode of Fish Sauce.
Join us on a journey into the minds of successful founders, operators, and investors.
As we learn more about their secret sauce, we hope you find yours too.
In this episode, we'll share our growth lesson of how we name our podcast Fish Sauce.
Most people didn't know the trials and tribulations of naming the podcast. We had so many lunches, dinners, and probably way too much whiskey.
Way too much.
Brainstorming different names that we came up with before coming to a final conclusion. Some of the early names we thought of were
Shoes Off, which I kind of like. It was pretty clever, right?
Yeah. Tech Ninjas.
Kaizen.
Digital Dumplings. As you can imagine, there are so many names, and we even had a beta group to poll people. And eventually we settled on, drum roll please.
Let's go. What is it? Tech Ninjas.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I'm coughing here. Like, that's exactly why we decided not to go with it. I mean, we love Tech Ninjas to begin with, though. We felt like we were so sure.
Yeah, we went around our work and started telling people about this new podcast we're starting called Tech Ninjas, and people kind of just gave us a stare.
Yeah, it wasn't the best stare, but I think they're nice enough to say, yeah, go ahead, like, try it out. I think our closest friends were a little bit more honest and direct to us, and when we got to one of our weekend trips to Tahoe, our friends gave us a little bit of negative or maybe a constructive feedback about, like, you know, maybe it's not the best name and it felt a little bit outdated, and people thought we were like IT support.
Geek Squad.
Yeah, like
Best Buy.
And do you want to be part of the Geek Squad right now?
I wanted to work at Best Buy in high school.
Yeah, that's true. It's actually pretty cool back then. But now, like, maybe we want to try something different, and so we decide maybe, you know, Tech Ninjas wasn't the right name. But what do we do? What do we do to rethink the whole name?
Yeah, so we went back to the drawing board, and we decided to go eat at our favorite place in the Tenderloin in San Francisco. And after a few too many shots of fish sauce on our pork chop, shrimp paste, steamed egg over rice, which is the plate that we generally get. Yeah, definitely so good. We realized the secret sauce is what made the food so freaking good, and that's why we named it Fish Sauce. Why did the name feel so good this time compared to last?
I mean, it just felt right. It wasn't because we were drunk off fish sauce during the meal, which was maybe partly true, but we realized that it's that smelly, that quirky, that critical flavor in everything we do at Fish Sauce. From us and even Christian and Patty. I'm not sure if they liked it when we say that, you know, we're a little smelly, we're a little quirky, but, you know, this is how we do things, right? And the way we create our values, from make your mom proud, you know, love the things we make, like, all these different things are so important. And I think at the end of the day, it comes back to our guests. And our guests have this, you know, that secret, distinct sauce that makes them so special. And sometimes it's that fish sauce. And that's why we landed on that name.
Fish Sauce. We love it. With that story being told, please don't ever call us Tech Ninjas again. We want to erase that from our memories, but it was a good first try.
Yeah,
right?
We're going to get out of our system, and now it's out. Like, please don't ever say that. So on to the episode today. This episode features a special guest in one of our favorite industries. What's that favorite industry?
The food industry.
Yeah, definitely one of our favorites. Dave Liu is the co-founder and president of Paired, a market network revolutionizing the way restaurants work and improve the lives of those in the industry.
Launched in 2015, Paired helps restaurants like Michelin 2-star rated Lazy Bear alleviate chronic short staffing by providing dishwashers and line cooks on demand.
Prior to co-founding Paired, Dave was working at Lux, founded by Curtis Lee. They're recently acquired by Vovo, so big congrats there.
Huge congrats.
If you haven't heard of him, we actually featured him in season 1 of Fish Sauce, so definitely rewind it back if you haven't listened to it yet.
Before that, Dave was the co-founder and CEO of FanPop, one of the biggest entertainment websites in the world, to over 35 million unique visitors.
Yeah, that's something that we aspire to at Fish Sauce.
I think we're close, right?
Pretty close, just a couple of magnitudes.
Yeah.
For this episode's growth lesson, Dave learned that in the restaurant tech industry, if you can't explain the value proposition to the restaurant owner in the first few minutes, they'll kick you out. But that's because they're busy making sure that their guests are having an enjoyable and amazing meal.
So what's Dave's secret sauce? Stay tuned to find out.
Can't wait.
I started off like every other Asian American kid. Grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. Was raised to do well in school and get into an Ivy League school. So I did that. I went to Wharton for undergrad at Penn and then studied finance. Found that after a year, I hated consulting. That was about the time that all the tech boom started kind of blowing up. I really wanted to join that. I saw my friends being a part of that at AOL and Netscape and other places, and I decided to join Yahoo as a product manager. And this was when Yahoo was about 1,000 people. Jerry Yang was sitting around the corner from me, and, you know, I'm very conservative, decided to stay on that path of going the safe route, learn from big corporations. I had applied to Stanford Business School and got a call from the director of missions and got in. And I'd always wanted to go to Stanford. Did consulting, worked at Yahoo, worked at Sony. That summer I worked at Apple. I thought, you know, I want to start my own company, but I'm not ready yet. I'll probably need to get to a VP level before I can start my own company, you know, get to a GM level, learn the ropes at a big, you know, corporate job before I can manage people or do any of that. I went to eBay right after school, and it was the same. It was like having been at another big corporate place and having come out of Stanford, you feel like you have superpowers coming out. You feel like I can do anything. I can conquer the world. And then you're sitting at a desk and you're doing a little bit of something that impacts, the company. Mm-hmm. I said, you know what? This is not for me. Like, I think I need to be somewhere that I can actually make an impact. And my director said, hey, it's better not to rock the boat here. Maybe just go with the flow. And I said, you know what? This is not for me. So I went to join a startup in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. And how'd you find it?
Gosh, good question. It was in hardware. So I was looking at, I had done hardware a little bit while I was at Apple. I was doing the laptops right here. And I thought, I want to, go back into that kind of product marketing, selling. And there was a single-use camcorders, cameras and camcorders, pure digital. They were the flip camcorders. I don't know if you remember, before all the phones had cameras.
Yeah, I remember that.
Flip cam, that's right.
I had one of those. I loved it.
I think it was a lot of people before phones, that was the thing. And
before Snapchat.
Before Snapchat, exactly. There were no filters. That thing barely held like more than 2 minutes. But, growing up, seeing my mom actually started a company, and my dad was an engineer and he supported her. My dad had seen my mom toil for like years working for someone else. He supported her and wanted her to start her own thing because he's like, you know what? You can be making so much more money, and you could be happier if you were your own boss. So it was kind of ingrained in me. Like, it wasn't, they didn't want me to go do my own thing. They're like, hey, go work at Google, go work at Yahoo, go work at all these big companies and Facebook, whatever.
Even after all the experiences you've already had?
Yeah, no, because they're just like, hey, that's a good living. They didn't take the risk to come to the States, to go to grad school here, do all that stuff, to watch me go flounder and take a risk and maybe end up broke. I think a lot of it is because they like to be able to tell their friends when they ask, where does your son work?
Our parents too.
Yeah,
same.
It's everyone, right? And
it's funny where I used to work at IBM, and they're so proud to talk about IBM, but
to us it's like, what?
Yeah, but when I worked at Square, and my dad still tells his friends that I still work at IBM.
Yeah.
Same, back at BAML, my parents still say, oh, my son works at a finance company.
Yeah. What? Yeah, it's true. I think I hear people say, Asian parents are too hard on their kids, they're too strict and this and that. They came here risking like everything so that they can have a better life for their kids. They don't want them to go through the same struggles that they had. And so I understand the security aspect of it, to provide for your family, to not worry about, all like paying your mortgage and things like that. But, I think we're now making our own path. When I was little, my dad would say, he's like, I said, oh, I want to be an engineer like you, Dad. And he said, as an engineer, you're always working for someone else, and you'll never be the one who actually, calls the shots or makes the money or benefits from this. And he said, you don't want to be an engineer because that's what, I do that. He's a chemical engineer and he was working for someone else for who knows how long. And it just like...
Actually, my dad says the same thing of, not working for someone and kind of building your own business. Is that something that for immigrants, parents that would tell them that, or is that like an Asian American thing?
I think a lot of Asian parents would say, no, go work for someone if it's secure and safe and they can give you a salary. For them, it's more the conservative safe, like get your resume, like spick and span. And that's what mine was until I decided, you know what? It was around 2005, 2006 when open source was, blowing up. Ruby on Rails, SQL, you could get all the stuff off the shelf and just start coding really cheap and starting a company. It was an evolution of kind of the diminishing costs of starting a company that I came in on the curve and said, you know what? The hardware cycle is really slow for me. So I wanted to build something software related. Me and a friend of mine, we would meet up for lunch because his office was nearby. And for, week after week, we would meet up for lunch and just start hashing out ideas.
That's what that was in the very beginning.
Throw stuff against the wall.
That sounds like both guys, Andrew and Ben.
Yeah,
that too,
exactly. Very similar story.
Yeah.
When I started FanPop, we came up with the idea because I had been doing affiliate marketing strategy and products for eBay, basically paying people to drive registrations and usage. And I thought, you know what, this kind of affiliate revenue that they're generating, like maybe I should try to see if there's anything there. So I was thinking, what's a niche community that I'd be really excited about? And I'm into digital photography, so I had a digital SLR. Everyone would always ask me, oh, what camera should I get? What lens should I get? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what, I've given this response to so many people, and I wish I could just put it on a website and just let them look
it up.
Here's
an FAQ for you guys.
Yeah, just don't bother me. Here's a link. But then I realized there's got to be a lot of people looking at this. So I put up my kind of tips and advice, and then I put the affiliate links on the side. So I did that, and I started adding forums and, photo galleries, and people started like joining, and they created this community because they all had that shared kind of passion and interest in this Canon like family of cameras, because you're either Nikon or Canon. That community kind of grew and grew, and I thought, hey, this is pretty sticky. What if we built a platform for people to create these niche communities around topics of interest? So that's how FanPop was born. We thought it'd be like, oh, stamp collecting, baseball card collecting, whatnot. But slowly it became more entertainment focused. We got up to about 35 million users a month, and it was crazy.
At which point does this temporary solution or this passion project you have on the side becomes a business? Many people are thinking about that too. And, as we think about fish sauce, as a passion project.
Yeah.
And over time, do we think of it as a business? Is there like a pivotal point in which that
You realize it when you get really excited about a project or an idea and you start working on it day and night, even when you have a job, and you realize you're doing a half-assed job and it could be a lot better. You're kind of letting yourself down and your users down, because if your best hours are being put into something that it's not yours, or you're not excited about, then, you're not giving your best to the things that matter. So for me, it was, gosh, I'm up till, 2, 3 a.m. before going to my day job, working on this thing. I'm basically not being fair to myself or true to myself if I don't pursue this. Always been really into the restaurant world. Part of that comes from finding that kinship with restaurateurs, with chefs and restaurant owners. We have this kinship of being startup founders who have to raise capital, open the doors of a business office, whatever, have customers come in, convince them to pay you money for your product, and then iterate on your food or your website or your app so that people will keep coming back and engage. Otherwise, you go out of business. You're creating the UI UX of the interior of a restaurant, your plates, the staff, the people that serve you. So all of that, I think there's this kind of common risk that we take, although I think it's much harder for a restaurateur because they can't scale it as well. But that means I respect them even more because they're taking a great risk at maybe possibly not a great return, because everyone knows restaurant margins are terrible. But those who have done well and have figured out the formula, they're really killing it. So I think I was listening to a podcast on my way over, Jose Andres on how I built this. And it was like, he has like 25 restaurants now, and he's built this empire from, being a cook. But he's iterated on a concept and on ideas and what people want, and he's given it to them. I think that's the whole thing with Andrew and Ben, with Boba Guys. Like, they've created a product that really resonates with people. That's when you really, you're onto something. And so that's what, as a startup founder, even in tech, you have to do too. You need to appeal to someone who's willing to use your product, but also pay you for your product. Otherwise, you don't make any money. I love restaurants, but a restaurant startup was what I really want to do, either restaurant or travel, because I'm into both. I don't know who's not, but but I think it was hard. I would walk into all the restaurants around my neighborhood in Hayes Valley and ask them, hey, could you use a group reservation system? Or, hey, would you like a this or that? And like, dude, get out of here. Get out of my restaurant. I get like 20 people a day trying to startup people coming in, like trying to sell me something. And that doesn't help my business. Like, I need something that will actually like make me more money, not me spending more money for who knows what. And so, loyalty program, POS, this, that, they just get the same people. And especially in San Francisco, they get hit up all the time.
Quick question right there. A lot of my friends who are starting businesses for restaurant technology, they're trying to go to these restaurant owners and pitch to them, here are this awesome technologies. Maybe it's a little bit complex. They may not understand it. What's the best way to pitch to someone that is very traditional in the restaurant industry?
So I think it's less about being traditional than they have no time. You try to set up time with them, they're busy. They're trying to get food ready for their customers. Because if someone were to come into our office and start bugging our engineers, we'd get out. We're trying to get some work done. And so that's what happens. These guys their schedules are horrible. And so they're trying to deal with putting out fires all the time. Like, someone didn't show up to work. Like, they didn't get the
operations business.
Yeah. And so someone coming in trying to sell them something that doesn't solve that, they don't understand the technology and the value that adds right away within the first few minutes, then forget it. If you have to explain it like that hard, then they're not going to see the value.
They shouldn't use like AI, machine learning, and data analytics.
They're like, get out. I'm trying to get some food out on a table, so bother me another time, and then you'll never get it. It's a hard sell. They're busy people. So I'd say you do what we did and find a problem that they are in pain about, and that's how I got pulled into it. When my co-founder Will, he's Filipino American, went to Stanford and was supposed to go to medical school, but he ended up going to culinary school in New York instead. He and then eventually ended up starting his own restaurants because he's like, I know the food side, I know the tech side, the operations, so I'm going to start a restaurant. So Spice Kit is his restaurant. There's one here, one in...
Very good.
Yeah, so it's like the Asian street food Chipotle. He comes to me because he's part of my Asian founders group. So we have 100 or so Asian founders, from food to nonprofits. They're all there. I was a fanboy of Thomas Keller's. A friend of mine who went to Stanford with him said her friend is opening a place around the corner who would cook for Thomas Keller. And I said, I got to meet this guy. So we went together and met him, and then he joined the group. But it was through that he reached out to me when he had this idea. And he had been consulting for Uber Eats, and he's like, you know what, this is really cool and all, but this doesn't solve my problem, my immediate need. And that was that he was making sandwiches after like 5 years down in Palo Alto because someone just quit or they couldn't find someone to work. So he's, trying to run this food empire, and he has to go down and make sandwiches because they couldn't find someone to do it. And if he doesn't do it, no one's going to do it. And then service suffers. So he's like, man, I wish there was such an app or something I could do to get some Subway sandwich artist or anyone nearby to come help and fill this shift for me, because they could do it. Instead, he's the one doing it. So when he brought that idea up to me and he said, I would pay for someone to come and do this, I thought, hey, you are in the industry, you actually operate a business, and this is a pain point you would pay for? Sign me up. Let's experiment. And so we did that. We, threw some ads up on Craigslist. I made a website. We found some cooks who were able to do a tryout and audition at Spice Kit. We had the unfair advantage of actually having a restaurant. We auditioned them. We put them on our platform so that our platform, we didn't have a platform, it was like a spreadsheet at the time. Cool. We call it a platform, yeah. But we got, basically when we needed extra help because someone bailed on their shift at Spice Kit, we would basically bring them in and away.
So from a restaurant's perspective, they don't have to have additional staff on their payroll,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, they don't have to have staff on their payroll. They're filling the shifts because people are unreliable. Employees are just, the churn is so high, the turnover is so high, but they still need bodies who can actually do the job. And these were already pre-vetted, so we knew they could do the job because we already auditioned them. But they weren't, employees that had to come in on a shift. They could just, we could offer to them for X amount of money and they come in. So very much like Lyft or Uber. It's like, hey, for $18 an hour, will you come in and do this shift? And like, yeah, that's more than I get paid $12 an hour somewhere else. And the idea that right now in the world, there's, especially here in San Francisco, it's hard to live here. It's expensive. And a lot of these cooks, they're making minimum wage or, slightly more, but they're slaves to their schedule and they have to have two jobs because they're not getting the hours to get, enough pay. After 10 days, 20 days straight of being on your feet and, being in a hot kitchen, you're going to break down and you're not going to show up to work the next day. And no, it's not their fault necessarily because they're just, burnt out and no one can physically do it. But they have to go back on Craigslist and look for another job. And it just kind of, the vicious cycle happens again and again. Whereas people who worked on our platform, they work a full-time job or they don't and just work completely unpaired and they just pick up shifts whenever they want to because they have the skill sets. Yeah. They can go, they're like killer in any kitchen and they can just be a mercenary and go anywhere and do well. We thought, this would be very commoditized, dishwashing, prep cooking, chopping carrots. But we found that based on the trust that you have from where you've worked in the past and other chefs that you work with, they would trust you to, make risotto. So even line cooks, we knew we could get in, get people in. So we learned over time that there was something here and that demand was there and people would pay for it. It was good for the workers. They were making a lot more money and they had the flexibility. And then for the restaurants, they were filling in their gaps. I think that was when we decided, hey, let's quit our jobs and do this.
So we noticed that a lot of your investors are Asian American.
Yeah.
Is there a correlation between that and sort of your personal networks, or it just happened to be that way?
No, it is very much my personal networks. Again, I created that Asian American founder circle kind of out of this network that I had that I guess a lot of other people didn't have. I started the founder circle because I had other friends who didn't feel like they knew very many Asian American founders. So
do you think that's changing today?
I think it's changing today in the sense that more of us are starting our own companies. So that's where you're seeing a lot of the executives. And that's not to say that, there are a lot of, Indian immigrants like Satya Nadella and Sundar that are CEOs of Microsoft and Google. I mean, that's huge. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, if you look at the numbers, 28%, 30% of Silicon Valley top companies are Asian American or Asian American, and only like 14% of the executives are actually Asian. And so there's a big disconnect, and they can make a lot of excuses about Asians are too passive, they're not aggressive enough.
We're starting to see more founders and CEO who are Asian American, but I've heard that it's more rare to have Asian Americans being hired as CEOs for companies, right?
And this is why it's like, what, I didn't want to play that game, and I decided I want to start my own thing and work on my own company and found my own company because then I get to build that culture and we can hire diverse employees and promote diverse employees, and it doesn't have to be like that. If we're in a place that someone else is dictating that and they're building the culture, then I'm playing in someone else's game. I wanted people to feel like that there is this community of people who took the risk to go off the beaten path and go against their parents' wishes and start something.
Hopefully fish sauce can help that as well.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. I want to encourage those folks who have gone the traditional route and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get off the train now and go a different way.
Do you think, as a young Asian American, as they see Asian American founders as CEOs, they're more attracted to applying to those jobs?
I think so. I mean, I was talking to you guys earlier about this, and I think just last night I was at an event with John Chang, who's running for governor, and seeing an Asian American governor is huge. Asians don't get into politics. They don't vote. They think politics is shady, whatever, and they don't want to have that kind of spotlight on them. And if they see an Asian American as the governor of California, they think, hey, I can be that. If they see an Asian American as president, they think I can be that. As Andrew Chow always says, if we can normalize it, then people don't think it's weird. Don't make it like, they're the exception. It's like, hey, I didn't think twice about it because there are Asian governors and mayors and whatever. I mean, here now it's like you don't flinch when there's an Asian mayor because you just keep thinking, hey, that's normal. And you think I can be that too. One thing I always talk about when I talk about starting companies is that I think a lot of Asian Americans are really afraid of taking that step. If you've always gone that kind of, straight and narrow path of tradition and conservative, big brand names and whatever. I mean, of anyone, I have like the worst resume for that because it's all like brand names until it's not, right? And you probably saw it like, holy cow, Dave's like, oh, da, da, da.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was me.
That's exactly what we thought.
I mean, when we were doing our prep, we're like, whoa, these are big companies.
and that's because I did what I was expected to do until I didn't. And I think the scariest thing was stepping off. And I always use the analogy of Indiana Jones in Last Crusade when he steps off onto that bridge when he's supposed to go get the Holy Grail, and you can't see anything. It's invisible. He's going to step into a chasm and die. But he takes that step of faith and doesn't realize that he couldn't see it, but there was a path there, like a bridge. And that bridge is all the people that you've met along the way and your family and friends that are there to support you. All the networks you build before then, they teach you a lot, but they also are people who are there to cheer you on. I mean, people came out of the woodworks. You're doing this. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. Hey, I know someone who could invest in this. I know. And I was like, where were you guys before? But they don't. Why are they going to bring this up to you if you're just working at IBM or somewhere, sitting at?
All right, guys.
No, I know. But if you're sitting in a cubicle like at somewhere, they're not going to bring up like, by the way, I know some people would invest in you or I believe in you, and that's what I would get. And this time around, when I raised money from my friends, and they said the same thing, like, and I think that says a lot about having that network of people who really believe in you and support you. But I stepped away not knowing if I could raise money this way, and they came out of the woodworks and actually wanted to invest. So I think it's really encouraging when you have that, but knowing that when you take that step and that leap of faith, that people will catch you and carry you across, that's, I think, the hardest thing for people to do.
We hear about taking the leap of faith a lot and encouraging people to kind of step outside of these Asian American norms and their upbringings and the way they're kind of taught to grow up as. But is it for everyone?
If you're not really passionate about the problem, then it's really hard to get up every day to go do it. If you're starting a company just to start a company, that's not going to work. Not everyone's designed for this, right? I joke that we want to hire a GM, and I say, it'd be great if we could hire a Goldman or McKinsey person because they're smart, but I don't know if they could roll their sleeves up and do the dirty work that we do. If you had to sit there and, hack a website and go pass out flyers and do all this stuff and go talk to cooks, I don't think the Goldman guy is going to do that because that's not in his DNA. But there are people who are like that. So those smart people who are willing to hustle, like if you can find those guys, that is someone who has the DNA to be a startup founder. There's people who are designed to be startup employees that can come in later, but not everyone is cut out to be like a founder because there's a lot of risk from walking away from money, from opportunities and like this path that you could keep going down. But if you know you're going to be miserable every day, I think the alternative is better. But you have to be willing to put in kind of the elbow grease and the sweat and the tears to do this because it's not for everyone. Growing up Asian American and being disciplined and being like getting the good grades and doing everything else, I think you learn what it takes to do well. I was mowing lawns and getting $20 a lawn and just selling my business. Like, that was hustling because I want to pay for my Patrick Ewing jersey. I want to buy the next Nintendo game. But that was my impetus for hustling. And I think if people realize what innately they can do that inspires them to hustle, then they should go and do that. It's the worst. I think it's worse if you do have a passion and an interest and an idea and you're, hustling and you don't give yourself the chance to succeed. Because too many people do that. I've advised so many friends who've asked me, hey, Dave, like, how'd you do it? How'd you start your own company? I want to do that too. And I tell them, hey, you're gifted at this, this, and this. Dude, you can build a company around your network and your skills. I think it's just that leap of faith and going after it is harder for some people than others. But all those things that you can tell someone, it doesn't mean anything if they don't feel like they want to do that. It's not for everyone, but I think it's really sad when people who it could be for don't go after it.
We're going to wrap up for a little bit. Yeah. So we're going to ask the question that we usually ask all our guests. What is your secret sauce, both figuratively and literally?
I'll go the literal first. I just had some santung wings the other day, and that santung sauce, this crack sauce, and they use it on all sorts of, whether it be chicken or fish or whatnot.
What is the santung sauce? What's in it?
If I knew, I wouldn't be like going there all the time. But no, it's like sweet and spicy, and it's kind of like the banchan sauce, but it's different. It's like actually a lot more saucy. Mm-hmm. There's chili peppers and sweet. Have you been?
We have, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if I knew, I can eat that like all day. That's my favorite sauce. In terms of figuratively, I think for myself, it's always been about helping other people. People think they're like, oh, hey, Dave, how do you have such a big network? Why do you know so many people? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just, if you're nice to people, they're nice to you. And you be genuine, be authentic. Help people when they need help. Help people when they ask for help. Help people when they're not asking for help. If you initiate something with someone where you're saying, hey, you're looking for a summer internship or you're looking for a job after HBS, and I know some people. That's not you asking, because the one thing I think about Asians is that they're too passive and they don't ask for what they want. And that's why actually most of them are underpaid. Even if they're getting paid well, they could be getting paid more than their other counterparts, because those people feel they feel entitled and they deserve it. But certain entitled people, I think they feel like their self-value is worth a lot more than it is, and they just ask, regardless of whether it's true or not, and they get paid more. The same thing goes for asking for like favors or help. Ask for help. The worst thing that can happen is they can say no, and no one's going to look down on you upon it for
Why don't we ask for help? Or Asian Americans?
I mean, I think part of it is, humility, and they're just like, they feel like they should be able to do it themselves. They don't want to depend on someone else for it. But another is also, it's face. It's like, if you ask for help, it means you weren't able to do something yourself.
Is there something about the Asian American upbringing or the way our parents taught us?
Well, yeah, a lot of it's don't rock the boat, right? It's like, don't just keep your head down and work hard and you get what you deserve. It's meritocracy. That's the falsehood of a lot of this stuff. Meritocracy only exists in a vacuum, and we don't live in any meritocracy. I think that's what you learn is like the people who ask for it, they feel like they deserve it. But for a lot of Asian Americans, they're like, hey, I have to earn it. And some stuff isn't earned and it's not given to you. It's, you have to go and get it. And I think that's something that I've learned over time. And, I think with the networking or whatnot aspect of it, I often offer my help, and not to get anything in return, but it happens to pay itself back a lot of times in spades. But I'm not looking for anything. If you build a reputation where people can trust you, it goes a long way. Regardless of whether it be professionally or personally, I think it's a really valuable skill to have, to be able to bring people together. So I have a big network and I leverage that and it keeps getting bigger because I meet more people and I say, hey, I know this person who can help you, or I know that person who can help you. And I think how you really can, build a strong network. And, access is everything. If you want to succeed, you need access. If you're not at the table, or if you're, as in Hamilton, you weren't in the room where it happened, then you're not going to be even thought of. You're not in the room where it happened. That's why you're not an exec. The Asian guy's not in that room. And so they never get chosen to be CEO or COO or whatever it is. So you got to get yourself in that room. Kick, scream, whatever it takes, make some noise, but get in that room, because if you don't ask for something, you're never going to get it. And I think that's the access you get is from kind of building a reputation, building a network. And whether it be in a big company, I don't know if all your listeners are entrepreneurs, but if you're at a big company listening and you don't want to start something you're scared to, make some noise at your job, because this networking, this access, that is really valuable in your corporate job too. And you'll learn that soon enough. When you look around you and you see the people who keep getting, promotions and you're not, ask yourself why, and you'll see those guys make some noise.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Fish Sauce.
If you like what you heard, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and sign up for our newsletter for the latest updates and special surprises.
Also, treat yourself and a friend to a Fish Sauce t-shirt from our swag store, fishsaucepodcast.com. We can't wait to see you rocking on the streets.
If our mission resonates with you, please leave a review on iTunes, and don't forget to share with your friends so we can welcome them into our Fish Sauce family.
And lastly, big shout out to our awesome editor, Christian Edwards, for making us sound better than we actually are in each episode of Fish Sauce.
What's your secret sauce?